Hi, good morning here. I'm in Phoenix right now. I'm Valerie Milano with the Hollywood Times, back and forth to Los Angeles and Palm Springs. So I'm going to have our guest introduce herself. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Sarah Nocquet. I'm the writer-director of Speed Queen 51, which is a film that just had its world premiere at the Palm Springs Short Fest.
Yay. Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, Palm Springs Film Festival. Lots of film festivals going on right now. Speed Queen 51 is a psychological thriller starring Rory Culkin about two strangers alone in a laundromat at night who realize they're never going to see each other again and decide to trade some secrets. So, yeah,
That's
I was
great.
one of the lucky ones that's got to see it. And the idea to total strangers exchanging intimate secrets about themselves is both interesting and challenging for one to accept, and especially in this day and age of mistrust and misdeed. Is the intention here to challenge the audience to think outside their little intimate boxes as they watch the story unfold?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question for the audience to ask themselves what secret would they share? What's a deep, dark secret that if they could confide in someone and get that sense of relief without the consequences of the secret being out in the world, what would it be that they would share? I mean, in the film, the characters don't share their names for each other, so there's no way for them to track each other down. And obviously, in the story, it ends up coming to a point of culmination that does have lasting consequences for both of them. But it is an interesting question for an audience to ask themselves, and I hope that that's on people's minds when they're watching the movie.
Yeah, and in the film, one gets the impression at first that the young man played wonderfully creepy by Rory, has an agenda in his approach to the young woman, also played very well by Jane Purnell. Um, and the young woman is perceived as maybe a little bit shy, maybe even vulnerable. But as we find out, the tables get turned. Things and people are not always what or who they seem to be, right? Can you talk a
Yeah,
little bit about that?
yeah, absolutely. I was interested in having a protagonist switch in the film. So starting off from the man's perspective as he approaches this woman, and we're curious about what his intentions are, whether they're malicious, whether there's a hint of romance in the beginning between the two of them because they're alone together in this dark space. It could lean either way, right? It could either have sort of scary quality, or it could be the beginning of a romance. So we start from his point of view, and then throughout the sharing of secrets, we start to take her point of view on the story that he ends up telling her, and ending the film with her perspective on this man having come up to her. So hopefully we get a good sense of where each of them are at in the story, and use that pivot as a way to get a new perspective on both of their secrets.
Yeah, early on, when she shares her intimate detail about feeling useless, the young man says, "You can't put pressure on yourself to change the world."
Mm-hmm.
But doesn't she show him, and in turn, the audience, the utter fallacy that statement, when in the end she does her part to um, hang on to the world? She takes action, but isn't he the agent of his own predicament at the end?
That's a good question. I think that her secret is sort of a setup for um, what she ends up doing at the end as a result of hearing his secret, in that she's looking for a sense of purpose. She's looking to look right in front of her and know exactly what she's meant to do. And that's what ends, without giving away the film, that's sort of what ends up happening, is she's hearing his secret and she's getting a sense that this is a way that she could fulfill her purpose or find a sense of meaning in her life. It's a good question of whether it's his agency or hers that results in that final action, whether he brings it on himself, or if she's the one that sort of makes something of what an event that he thought would be passive, where he could just confide and she would just comfort him. I think he's expecting her to provide a sense of relief for him. And in a way that makes them both kind of selfish people, that they're trying to take part in this selfless exchange of of deep vulnerability, and yet they're both looking for something that they can get out of each other. She's looking for him to provide her with this sense of purpose. She's looking to find utility in this exchange, and he's hoping that she'll forgive him essentially on behalf of the world for what he's done. So the question of agency is really one that I was keen to explore, and that I hope is something that remains ambiguous, but you know, uh, still ambiguous, but something that we're curious about at the end of the film.
Yeah. It's an interesting story, one that certainly provokes thought, among the audience. Where did you find inspiration for the story? And can you talk a bit about the production process, like how long was the shoot and where the laundromat you used
Yeah,
is?
so this laundromat, I lived in Bushwick at the time of shooting in Brooklyn and New York, and this was my laundromat across the street from me that I used. And it had these very big dryers that ended up being a plot point in the film. So it ended up being the perfect set, but I was definitely inspired by this location first and these two actors that I had already worked with, who I knew that I wanted to cast in the role. And I really wrote the characters for these two actors. I didn't audition anyone. I just asked them both if they'd be interested in the project. I had this laundromat that I knew I could shoot in because it was mine, and it was very easy to prep the shoot because I would just go there every day with with various department heads. Every day I mean, almost every day I was going there to prep the shoot. We were able to rehearse in the space. It was so close to my apartment. So that was really, on a practical level, that was the production elements that came into play. On more of a story level, I think I was at a point in my life where I had graduated from college into the pandemic, like 2 months after the pandemic started. And it had been a few years, and this was a time when people were starting to like get back to life and start making films again. And I just had the pressure to, find a job and find a good use of my time. And I felt like an almost overwhelming amount of power to decide who I wanted to be, or I felt like I had this huge responsibility to define myself in the world as an adult, as a working adult. And I was drawn to that theme, and I wanted two characters who were at a point in their lives that was similar, this sort of transitional space where they wanted to define themselves and decide who they were, and they were wanted to challenge what the world thought of them and how much power the world had to define who they were. And in a way, they're both kind of self-prioritizing characters that think themselves better than their surroundings. And there's a sense of that individualism when you're at a time when you're trying to figure out who you want to be, where you have to have a bit of an ego about it to make any big decision. So I wanted to explore characters that were at that time in their lives where they were at a big point of transition, or when they were challenging how they were being seen and how they saw themselves in the world. And then the laundromat fit in as a very similar space in that it's a transitional liminal space that nobody lives in. We're all in temporarily. And I thought it was interesting to put these two characters in that space. And then obviously it's just a brief encounter, which was the name of the screening block at Palm Springs, Brief Encounters. But it's a brief encounter in this space, and they come and go and have an exchange that changes both of them.
And the cinematography was very effective with its intimate close-ups and brief
Mhm.
sweeping pans to establish the setting. The production values were solid, particularly for having been shot in that laundromat. Talk about the cinematographer and talk a little bit about their work, please.
Yes, so my cinematographer's name is Adil Iriakli. Her name is Turkish, it's a little hard to pronounce. But she's someone that I've been working with in various capacities since college. Most of my crew was people I'd worked with on so many different sets and in many different roles over the last few years. So it was a really great, tight-knit group of friends, which really helped. We shot in 2 nights in February, so we were shooting outside of business hours. We shot 9 p.m. to like 8 a.m. On 2 weekends. But the fact that the crew was so close and that we all were actually good friends made it really easy to do the nights, and made it so that we were able to foster a really creative environment and relaxed and not stressed about anyone feeling like they, were being overworked. It really felt like a family environment. She's an incredible cinematographer. She's worked on some really, really great projects. She was able to actually, so we had big panel fluorescents in the laundromat on the whole ceiling, as you do in a laundromat, and we weren't able to turn them off. And at first, that was a big concern that we would just have to light the film with fluorescence. But she was able to adapt to that and basically color balance the camera to those lights so that then when we added our lights, which were much stronger, we were able to really control the lighting of the scene. Even though if you're on the shoot, it looks like we're just under fluorescent lighting, but then in camera, she found a great balance of making something cinematic and yet realistic to the space. Because we didn't want to do something that was, really high contrast or that felt like it wasn't really a laundromat, just for the sake of it looking good. And I think she and I worked together quite closely to find that balance of something that felt like a movie and that felt gritty and cinematic, but not untrue to the space.
Well, let's rewind down and just tell our audience like where we can find more about the film and social media, a website, and you and any other work you've done.
Yeah, so my name is Sarah Nocquet. I'm sure it'll be written in the article. My website is sarahnoquet.com. My Instagram is Sarah Nocquet. Those are the two main places to see my work. I have another short film that will be doing the festival market, hopefully in the fall. We just finished shooting it and sending it out. It's a short film called Decoy, 5-minute film about a celebrity in a toilet stall right after winning an award at an award ceremony. So look out for that one, and that'll be the next big project. And hopefully Speed Queen will take us to many more festivals.
Beautiful. Well, you make sure you keep us posted. We're the Hollywood Times Official on YouTube and hollywoodtimes.net on our website, and the Hollywood.Times on Instagram. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time today to
Thank
speak
you.
with us. And yay, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Great to
Thank
meet
you,
you. Thanks so
Sarah.
much.
Thanks so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.